During a thunderstorm in Richmond, Virginia in 1942, Dr. Margaret Thornfield received an emergency call that would shake her understanding of life and death forever. Her beloved German shepherd, Rex, had been struck by lightning while protecting a neighbor's children from the storm. Within hours, Rex was gone, leaving behind a heartbroken veterinarian who had saved countless animals but couldn't save her own. What happened next defied everything she thought she knew about animal consciousness and the afterlife. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 3 days after Rex's passing, Dr. Thornfield began experiencing phenomena that forced her to seek help from the most documented psychic researcher of the era. Edgar Cayce, known throughout Virginia as the man who could access information beyond the physical world, had spent decades documenting evidence that consciousness survives death. But his work with grieving pet owners revealed something extraordinary that most people never discover about their departed animal companions. Through thousands of consultations spanning 4 decades, Cayce uncovered undeniable proof that the bond between humans and their pets transcends physical death. His meticulously recorded sessions, preserved in archives that researchers still study today, contain specific evidence that deceased pets not only maintain their consciousness after death, but actively work to communicate with their heartbroken owners through 5 distinct and recognizable signs. What Dr. Thornfield discovered through her consultation with Cayce would revolutionize her understanding of animal consciousness and provide comfort to countless pet owners facing the devastating loss of their beloved companions. The first sign that emerged from Rex's attempt to communicate was so subtle yet so specific that it left even Cayce's experienced stenographer stunned by its implications. The phenomenon began exactly 1 week after Rex's death. Dr. Thornfield started finding his favorite tennis ball in impossible locations throughout her home. Not just anywhere, but specifically in places that held deep meaning in their relationship together. The ball appeared on her pillow where Rex used to sleep beside her during thunderstorms. It materialized in her veterinary clinic, exactly where Rex would wait patiently while she treated other animals. Most remarkably, the ball appeared in her car's passenger seat on the morning she planned to visit Rex's grave for the first time. During her session with Cayce, information came through that transformed how she understood these occurrences. The departed German shepherd was demonstrating the first major sign that deceased pets use to contact their owners. They manipulate familiar objects to appear in emotionally significant locations. This wasn't random chance or wishful thinking. Rex was deliberately moving his favorite possession to places that would trigger specific memories and emotions in Dr. Thornfield, creating a bridge of communication across the veil between life and death. Cayce's archives contain dozens of similar cases where departed pets moved their favorite toys, blankets, or food bowls to meaningful locations as their primary method of establishing contact. A tabby cat named Whiskers in Baltimore consistently moved her favorite catnip mouse to her owner's reading chair where they used to spend quiet evenings together. A golden retriever called Buddy in Charleston arranged his leash by the front door every morning at precisely the time he and his owner used to begin their daily walk. The consistency of this phenomenon across hundreds of documented cases led Cayce to conclude that deceased pets retain not only their consciousness, but also their deep emotional connections to their human families. They understand the significance of specific objects and locations in their shared history and use this knowledge strategically to announce their continued presence and love. But the implications went far deeper than simple object manipulation. Through his expanded awareness during these consultations, Cayce accessed information revealing that deceased pets maintain their individual personalities, their capacity for love, and their desire to provide comfort to grieving owners. They comprehend human emotion and actively work to ease the pain of separation by proving their consciousness survives death intact. What made Dr. Thornfield's case particularly remarkable was Rex's escalation to the second sign when she initially dismissed the moving tennis ball as coincidence. 3 weeks after the object appearances began, she started experiencing the most vivid and emotionally intense dreams of her entire life. These weren't ordinary dreams tinged by grief and memory. They were communications so clear and detailed that she woke each morning with specific information that proved Rex's continued existence. In the most significant of these dream encounters, Rex appeared to Dr. Thornfield in perfect health, and communicated without words that he wanted her to check on Mrs. Henderson's elderly beagle, Charlie, who lived 3 blocks away. The dream included specific details about Charlie's condition that concerned Rex deeply. When Dr. Thornfield visited Mrs. Henderson the next day, she discovered that Charlie was indeed suffering from early symptoms of kidney disease that hadn't yet been diagnosed. This pattern of protective guidance through dreams represents the second major sign that deceased pets use to maintain their connection with their human families. Cayce's extensive records document case after case where departed animals provided crucial information, warnings, or guidance through dream communications that proved accurate and beneficial to their living owners. A Persian cat named Princess contacted her owner through dreams to reveal the location of important medical documents the woman desperately needed for an insurance claim. A German shepherd named Max appeared in dreams to warn his elderly owner about a gas leak in her basement that could have proved fatal if left undiscovered. A parakeet called Sunny communicated through dreams to alert her owner about a fraudulent contractor who was planning to overcharge for unnecessary home repairs. The sophistication and accuracy of information received through these dream communications astounded even Cayce's most experienced researchers. The departed pets demonstrated knowledge about current situations, future events, and hidden problems that they couldn't possibly have known through normal means. This suggested that death had expanded rather than diminished their awareness and their ability to perceive situations that might affect their beloved human companions. During his consultation sessions, Cayce consistently accessed information showing that deceased pets understand dream states as optimal periods for communication because human resistance to psychic contact diminishes during sleep. The analytical mind that might dismiss subtle signs during waking hours becomes receptive to direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact when the physical brain enters dream cycles. What emerged from thousands of documented cases was a pattern showing that departed pets often escalate their communication attempts when initial signs are ignored or dismissed. They progress from subtle physical manifestations to increasingly direct forms of contact until their human companions acknowledge their continued presence and love. The third sign that Rex began demonstrating caught Dr. Thornfield completely off guard and forced her to confront the reality of interspecies communication beyond death. Electronic devices throughout her home began responding to invisible commands in ways that created meaningful patterns. Her radio would turn on spontaneously and tune itself to stations playing songs that reminded her of special moments with Rex. The television would change channels to programs about animals or veterinary medicine whenever she felt particularly. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Sad about his absence. Most remarkably, her telephone would ring at significant times with no caller on the other end, but the timing was never random. The calls came precisely when she needed comfort most. During moments of intense grief, on the anniversary of Rex's adoption, and on holidays they had celebrated together. The electronic interference followed an intelligent pattern that ruled out simple equipment malfunction. Cayce's research into this phenomenon revealed that departed pets possess the ability to influence electromagnetic fields and use electronic devices as tools for communication. Their consciousness, no longer constrained by physical limitations, can interact with electrical systems to create meaningful signals for their human companions. The archives contain extensive documentation of similar cases, where deceased pets manipulated radios, televisions, lights, and even early computing devices to establish contact. A collie named Lassie in Denver consistently turned on her owner's radio to play "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?" whenever her human felt lonely. A Siamese cat called Midnight in Phoenix would cause lights throughout the house to flicker in specific patterns that spelled out "I love you" in Morse code, which her owner had taught her as a kitten. A cockatiel named Mozart in Seattle would activate his owner's record player to play classical music that they had enjoyed together during their evening routines. The sophistication of these electronic manipulations suggested that consciousness after death gains new capabilities rather than losing existing ones. The departed pets demonstrated understanding of cause and effect relationships in electronic systems that allowed them to create deliberate and meaningful communications through technology. But what fascinated Cayce most about this electronic communication was its emotional intelligence. The departed pets seemed to understand exactly when their human companions most needed reassurance and timed their technological interventions accordingly. They monitored their owners, emotional states, and responded with electronic signs specifically designed to provide comfort, hope, and evidence of their continued love. The fourth sign that emerged in Dr. Thornfield's experience with Rex represented perhaps the most emotionally powerful form of contact that deceased pets establish with their human families. She began sensing Rex's physical presence with stunning clarity during moments of emotional vulnerability. The phenomenon started subtly, a familiar weight settling on her bed during restless nights, exactly where Rex used to sleep. A warm presence walking beside her during their former jogging route through the neighborhood park. But these weren't vague impressions or wishful imagination. Dr. Thornfield could feel Rex's specific energy signature, recognize his individual personality, and even sense his emotional responses to her daily activities. During particularly difficult days at her veterinary clinic, she would feel his comforting presence nearby, providing the same emotional support he had offered during his physical life. The most profound of these encounters occurred 3 months after Rex's death, when Dr. Thornfield faced a crisis that tested her faith in her life's work. A young child's puppy was dying from a rare condition, and despite her extensive knowledge and experience, she couldn't find a way to save the animal. As she sat in her office late one evening, devastated by her apparent failure, she felt Rex's unmistakable presence settle beside her chair. Through this spiritual contact, she received clear guidance about an experimental treatment approach that she had previously overlooked. The information came not as words but as direct knowing, transmitted from Rex's consciousness to hers. When she implemented this guidance the following day, the puppy made a complete recovery that amazed her colleagues and the pet's grateful family. Cayce's archives contain hundreds of similar accounts where deceased pets provided their human companions with sensory experiences of their continued presence. These encounters served multiple purposes beyond simple comfort. They offered evidence of survival after death, maintained emotional bonds between species, and often included practical guidance for daily challenges. A border collie named Scout in Montana would appear as a tangible presence to guide his owner safely through blizzard conditions on their remote ranch. A Maine Coon cat called Duchess in Vermont would manifest her presence to alert her elderly owner about health issues that required immediate medical attention. A yellow Labrador named Sunny in Florida would provide a comforting presence during his owner's chemotherapy treatments, helping her maintain hope and strength throughout her cancer battle. The consistency and beneficial nature of these encounters led Cayce to conclude that deceased pets maintain their protective instincts and their deep love for their human families. Death doesn't sever these bonds but transforms them into spiritual connections that transcend physical limitations. What made these presence encounters particularly remarkable was their healing effect on grieving pet owners. People who experienced clear contact with their departed companions showed significant improvement in their grief recovery and overall emotional well-being. The knowledge that their beloved pets continued to exist and care for them provided comfort that traditional grief counseling often failed to achieve. The fifth and most extraordinary sign that Rex demonstrated to Dr. Thornfield involved his ability to influence living animals in ways that created unmistakable messages of love and continuity. This phenomenon began when neighborhood dogs started displaying unusual behavior specifically directed toward Dr. Thornfield. Dogs who had never shown interest in her before would break away from their owners during walks to approach her with Rex's characteristic head tilt and tail wag pattern. Stray cats would appear at her clinic and lead her to injured animals that needed immediate care, exactly as Rex used to do when he accompanied her on house calls. Birds would gather outside her windows and sing in harmonious patterns that reminded her of the peaceful mornings she and Rex had shared in her garden. These weren't random animal encounters, but coordinated actions that suggested Rex was somehow communicating with living creatures to extend his care and protection. The most astonishing example occurred when Dr. Thornfield was treating a severely injured hawk that had been brought to her clinic. The wild bird was too traumatized to allow human touch and refused all attempts at medical intervention. As Dr. Thornfield sat beside the hawk's cage, feeling helpless to ease its suffering, a golden retriever from the neighborhood wandered into her open clinic door. The dog approached the hawk's cage and lay down beside it in exactly the same position Rex used to assume when comforting frightened animals. Within minutes, the hawk visibly relaxed and allowed Dr. Thornfield to examine and treat its injuries. The golden retriever remained throughout the entire procedure, providing the calming presence that made healing possible, then quietly left the clinic once the hawk was stabilized. Through her consultation with Cayce, Dr. Thornfield learned that departed pets often work through living animals to continue their earthly mission of love and service. They maintain connections with the animal kingdom that allow them to orchestrate encounters and behaviors that benefit their human companions and other creatures in need. Cayce's extensive archives document similar phenomena across numerous species and locations. A deceased German shepherd named Baron in Texas would influence local wildlife to create spectacular displays of birds and butterflies in his owner's garden during times when she needed encouragement. A departed Persian cat called Snowball in Michigan would guide stray kittens to her owner's doorstep, knowing that caring for them would help ease the woman's grief and provide purpose. A miniature poodle named Coco, who had passed away in New York, would somehow coordinate with living dogs in the neighborhood to create spontaneous gatherings in the park where her owner walked each evening. These gatherings provided social connection and community support that helped the lonely woman rebuild her life after losing her beloved companion. The implications of this inter-animal communication network suggested that consciousness after death gains access to broader spiritual connections that exist within the natural world. Departed pets could tap into these connections to coordinate beneficial actions across multiple living creatures, creating support systems for their human families that extended far beyond individual relationships. What amazed researchers most about this phenomenon was its apparent organization and purpose. The living animals involved in these coordinated behaviors weren't acting randomly, but seemed to be following specific guidance designed to meet particular emotional or practical needs of the grieving pet owners. Dr. Thornfield's experience with Rex fundamentally changed her understanding of animal consciousness and the nature of death itself. Through Cayce's guidance, she realized that her beloved companion hadn't abandoned her, but had transformed into a spiritual presence capable of providing even more profound support than during his physical life. The 5 signs that Rex demonstrated — object manipulation, dream communication, electronic interference, physical presence, and coordination with living animals — represented a comprehensive system of contact that proved consciousness survives death intact. These weren't isolated incidents, but elements of a deliberate communication strategy designed to maintain love and connection across the boundary between physical and spiritual existence. Cayce's research revealed that all pets, regardless of species or circumstances of death, possess the ability to establish similar contact with their human families. The strength and clarity of these communications depend largely on the depth of the emotional bond shared during physical life, and the openness of the human companion to receiving subtle signs and messages. Pet owners who maintained loving memories of their departed companions while remaining receptive to ongoing communication often experienced the most profound and helpful contact. Those who closed their hearts to the possibility of continued connection due to overwhelming grief or religious beliefs that denied animal consciousness might miss the signs their pets were desperately trying to share. The archives contain case studies spanning decades that demonstrate how acknowledging and responding to signs from departed pets can transform the grief experience from devastating loss into continued relationship. Pet owners who recognized their companions' attempts at communication reported feeling less alone, more hopeful about their own futures, and deeply comforted by evidence that love truly transcends death. But Cayce's work revealed even deeper implications about the nature of consciousness itself. The sophisticated communication strategies employed by deceased pets suggested that animal awareness extends far beyond what mainstream science recognized during his era. These creatures possessed individual personalities, emotional intelligence, problem-solving abilities, and spiritual connections that enabled them to navigate between physical and spiritual realms. The evidence pointed toward a universal consciousness that connects all living beings in ways that death cannot sever. Pets and humans share spiritual bonds that create eternal relationships, characterized by mutual love, protection, and growth. Physical death represents a transition in the form of these relationships rather than their termination. Dr. Thornfield's story became one of hundreds in Cayce's archives that document the extraordinary lengths to which deceased pets will go to maintain contact with their beloved human companions. These animals demonstrate patience, creativity, and persistent love as they work to overcome the barriers created by physical separation and human skepticism. The most profound message emerging from decades of documentation was that no loving relationship truly ends with death. The consciousness that creates bonds of affection between species continues beyond physical life, finding new ways to express care, provide guidance, and share the eternal nature of love itself. Pet owners experiencing the devastating grief of losing a beloved companion can find hope in knowing that their relationships continue in spiritual form. The 5 signs revealed through Cayce's research provide a roadmap for recognizing ongoing communication and maintaining connection with departed pets who refuse to let death silence their love. Modern pet owners who understand these signs can transform their grief experience by remaining open to continued relationship with their departed companions. Rather than focusing solely on loss and absence, they can celebrate the eternal nature of love and watch for evidence that their beloved pets remain active, caring presences in their daily lives. The legacy of Edgar Cayce's research continues to provide comfort and understanding to countless individuals who have experienced the profound bond between human and animal consciousness. His documented cases prove that love creates connections stronger than death, and that consciousness evolves rather than expires when physical life ends. For anyone who has loved and lost a precious animal companion, the message is clear. Watch for the signs, remain open to the impossible, and trust that love finds a way to transcend every barrier, including the grave itself. Your departed pet may be working harder than you realize to prove that your relationship continues and forms more beautiful and meaningful than you ever imagined possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.